Greetings. Welcome to Queen L LLC. This is Queen L. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's video is regarding cusps of astrology. Now, you may or may not have heard of cusps with regard to zodiac signs. So let's take Pisces, for instance. If you were born in the sun sign of Pisces, which is from February 19th through March 20th, then one might say that, let's say if you were born around February 19th through February 21st or 22nd, or if you were born approximately March 17th or 18th through the 20th, that you were born on the cusp, meaning on almost the dividing point between the previous zodiac sign of Aquarius and Pisces, or Pisces entering into Aries. So that might mean that you possess some of the sun sign traits of either sign, depending on where your sun sign falls, what date. So some astrologers believe in cusps with regard to zodiac signs. Some do not. The ones who don't feel that it's because, the reason they don't is because the sun is either in one sign or the other, not straddling the fence between two. So therefore, once the sun has moved into the next zodiac sign, then it's in that sign. So you be the judge. I will say that a lot of times when someone possesses traits of an adjacent zodiac sign to their sun sign, it might not necessarily be because they are close in date to that cusp time frame. It could be that they have some heavy placement of that other zodiac sign within their chart. You really just have to look at that big picture that I talk about. Okay. Now, with regard to this video, I am speaking more so about the cusps of the houses within your chart. So as always, I recommend pulling that circular natal chart online, and there are plenty of free resources. I typically use astro.com, but there are other free resources. You are welcome to pull it via an app on your phone, but I always recommend pulling at least once, pulling that natal chart from on the internet and pulling that circular one so that you can see it in all its glory. Now, the cusps would be the similar concept to what I said about the zodiac signs, but if you're looking at the natal chart divided into pie slices, and those slices are the houses, and there are 12 of them, just like there are 12 zodiac signs. Now, there is a astrological system known as the whole house system, and that typically aligns the zodiac signs to each house. So they have a pairing, but most of the calculators that I have seen use the Placidus house system, and that means that there will be some variation, and I believe that that is more astrologically accurate. And of course, I'm referring to Western astrology. Okay, now with regard to these cusps, so there are 4 major cusp points that are in everyone's chart universally. The difference is the zodiac sign, but they're in the same spot: north, south, east, and west. Okay, now the first one of those 4 major points is the ascendant or rising sign. So you know that you have an ascendant or rising sign even if you don't know what it is, but where it is on the chart is that 9 o'clock point. Okay, now that is also the beginning of the chart. So you find the 9 o'clock point, just like on a clock. Find that point in your chart. It usually has the letters AC next to it, and it is usually a bold line. So you'll usually see a bold horizontal and vertical line. So the 9 o'clock point is the ascendant or rising sign, and this represents, it's considered also the cusp of your first house. This is considered your public persona, the image that you project to the world, what others' first impression is of you when they first encounter you. That is what your rising sign is, okay? Not necessarily, it's what you lead with, but it could be consciously or subconsciously. It's not necessarily who you are, but it's how you present to others, okay? So that's the first cusp point. The next one, also it represents your outer appearance. Now, the next one, if we're moving in a counterclockwise fashion, is the bottom of the chart. That is the cusp of your fourth house. So the house is, I don't know how it's looking. I know that my camera, it's kind of like a mirror image of myself. So I think this is, this would be the 9 o'clock and so on. But the bottom of your chart, the cusp of that fourth house, that is also referred to, you should see it on the chart as IC, like, so AC was where the ascendant was. IC, it is also known as your nadir or your coeli, and that's in Latin. The fourth house is representative of our home, our roots, our childhood, the type of home life that we desire. That is what that represents. And so that cusp point is the IC or nadir. Okay, so the next cusp, if we move on around counterclockwise, it is opposite of the ascendant. It is known as the descendant, and it is the cusp of the 7th house. Okay, so directly across, it's a horizontal line across, and it is the cusp of the 7th house. Now, hear my little in the background. So lively, so animated. He's excited, squealing with delight. So the 7th house, it represents our partner. It represents our relationships. So just like how the first house cusp, that is representative of you, and the first house is your house of self. The 7th house is regarding relationships and what you desire in a partner. That is what that cusp represents, your relationship style as well. Okay, so the final of the 4 major cusp points in your chart, it is at the very top of the chart. It is at the 12 o'clock point, and this one is the cusp of the 10th house. It is opposing that cusp at the bottom, the cusp of the 4th house, which was the coeli or the nadir. The cusp at the top is the midheaven or medium coeli, MC. So you might see that one noted as MC at the top, but it's your midheaven. Now, the 10th house is our house of our career. It's our house of our achievements. It's our house of about our legacy and what we desire our legacy to be, and whether or not we place value on certain things. Where we place value on our achievements in our life. Okay, now that again, that cusp is the midheaven. All right, now those are the 4 main cusps, but planets can have placements at the cusp of any of the house lines within your chart. Those are the 4 main ones that are universal. So you look at those, astrologers will look at those to give you insight into those 4 aspects of you. But any planets, also to note, any planets that are within 10 degrees, and so you'll see that on your chart as well, any planets that are within 10 degrees of those 4 focal points, they will give and lend extra energy. They are also heavily influenced and heavily influencing those 4 focal points. Okay, so that's something to note as well. All of those other house cusp placements, they may provide energy to the adjacent house. So let's say the 3rd house is our house of communication, and you have a planet that is within the 3rd house, but it's within around 10 degrees of being at the exact cusp line between, let's say, the 3rd house and the 2nd house. That means that that planet may give off a little energy to the 2nd house as well. I like to liken it to shadow periods. So we talk about shadow periods when we have a full moon or a new moon or a retrograde shadow period. And that means that prior to and just after, there may be some energy felt. With these house placements, if a planet is close to that border point between one house to the next house, it may give off a bit of energy or radiate a bit of energy from not just within the house that it is in, but outside of that house as well. Okay, and on the same token, if a planet is square mid of that house, then it's firmly set in that house and giving off major energy throughout the house. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful. As always, I offer my services to you. If you have any desire to have your natal chart analyzed, then I always have my booking link in the description box below. So you can tap in and we can go over your natal chart. I dig into it, go over the whole chart. Also giving you information about those 4 points as well. I'm talking about elements, modes, any type of patterns. I'll link my patterns video above. So any type of patterns that may be apparent and what that means for you. If there's an overall theme within your chart, so it's kind of like the theme of your life. Also, if there are any aspects that are apparent within your chart, because we do actually have planetary aspects that were taking place at the time we were born. And then if you're going through any returns right now, then I'll give you some tips on that. And then we end it with a Q&A session. So thanks as always. As I said in my first week of July video, I will be discussing the true node and retrograde transition from Taurus to Aries coming up in a video later this week. So stay tuned for that. I'll be in touch. Peace. Ashe.